Welcome, everybody. It is time for us to do a little review here of Joker Folie Adieu. I'm pretty sure I'm not pronouncing that correctly. I enjoyed the first Joker movie very much. I'd say a bit more than I even expected to, just knowing the actors in it, just knowing the kind of like the source material a little bit. I love Batman. I love the whole mythos surrounding Gotham and everything. Um, so I'm very excited to see what the take on Joker Part 2 is going to be here. So we're watching the IGN review of this, and I'm going to give you my thoughts throughout. So buckle up, get your popcorn.
2 years ago, the name Arthur Fleck hit Gotham like a hurricane.
Joker Folie Adieu charges out of the gate with a novel approach to DC's most famous villain, but it soon settles into rote rhythms.
There's the man
Though
right there.
Advertised as a dreamy jukebox musical, the sequel to 2019's Joker is actually more of a courtroom drama, and not a very interesting one at that.
Oh.
The film works best when pushing toward new ways of seeing its central character.
Dude, I was
often
worried
through
about
the eyes
this.
of a wonderfully realized
Let
Harley
me
Quinn.
pause this. I was worried about this when I saw the trailers. It seemed like it very much was surrounded around them going to a courthouse, them sitting in a courthouse, and right off the bat they're telling us that this was it was too much of a courtroom drama.
Quinn, played by
Oh,
Lady
no.
Gaga, but it too often insists on returning to familiar territory and, on occasion, familiar footage, instead of blazing a new path.
For once in my life, I have someone who needs me.
Oh,
Arkham Asylum
beautiful.
is now home to Joker/Arthur Fleck, whose daily routine involves being awoken by gruff prison guards who demand jokes from him while he empties his latrine.
What?
It seems like Arthur no longer speaks very much. He certainly no longer smiles. Director Todd Phillips, with the help of cinematographer Lawrence Sher, captures this mechanical mourning process in long, unbroken takes that draw the viewer into Joker's.
I must say that the cinematography does look good from the very beginning. When I just saw people were like leaking them filming on the street, even the scenes where it was just people taking pictures of the way that they were like, filming things, it looked cool even then, even from the like people just taking pictures of the way they had stuff set up.
grimy world. As he awaits trial, his lawyer, played by Catherine
look at
Keener,
that.
insists he pleads insanity. She figures that the best defense is to treat Joker and Arthur as distinct personalities occupying the same body.
Hey Fleck, you got a joke for us today?
Arthur, like most people around him, knows this is more of a legal strategy than anything resembling the truth. But the question of how his adopted persona changes him constantly looms.
Oh.
On one hand, separating Joker's actions from Arthur's and framing them as a trauma response might get him an easier hearing. On the other hand, when he draws the gaze of fellow patient and avowed admirer Harleen Lee Quinzel, it seems like Joker is who he wants and needs to be.
For once in my life, I didn't feel so alone anymore.
Since
That's
the
what
two
I.
meet,
That's kind of what I took away from the first movie is that, um, it wasn't that he wanted to be that way. Like throughout, like how they're saying here, where it's two separate people in the same body, kind of. It seemed like the people wanted that other persona out of him, but it was just that's part of who he is. But they just want him to be that, you know. They needed somebody to rise up. They needed somebody to be the match, you know, that lights the dynamite, you know. So it's kind of interesting. It's kind of an interesting way that they're explaining this here.
during musical therapy, real and imagined songs are scattered throughout Folie Adieu's runtime. These familiar Hollywood tunes and vintage pop hits are sung passionately by Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga, and some are even mixed with Hildur Gudnadottir's eerie, booming score. The duo, at first, connects through song. They match each other's freak, the shared madness and delusion of the subtitle, what the French call Folie Adieu. But much of this ends up
Yes, I think I
sidelined
said it
during
right.
the movie's lengthy courtroom scenes, which promise chaos when Arthur begins representing himself. Unfortunately, the delirium of Phoenix smearing on the grease paint to play both attorney and defendant isn't quite delivered.
What's changed, Arthur?
After an initial hour set entirely within Arkham's walls, the sequel becomes a kind of referendum on the first Joker, though not in any meaningful, transformative way. Rather, it's merely an extension of the first film's plot in the most plotting and literal fashion. For a film that's almost entirely liberated from its comic book source material, Joker Folie à Deux is oddly constrained by its own predecessor. Returning characters show up to narrate events we've already seen, as Keener asks leading questions about Joker feeling like a distinct entity from Arthur. On the flip side, the prosecutor is a smarmy Harvey Dent, played by Industry's Harry Lawtie. This version of the comic's villainous Two-Face is a treat to watch at all times, though his line of argument sheds little light on Arthur's actions or state of mind.
Let's get out of here.
Perhaps the standout of this extended segment is Gary, Arthur's clown colleague from the first movie, whose dwarfism comes ever so close to being the subject of Arthur's comedic riffing
Thank you for
when
hanging
he
out
takes
with
the
Gritty
stand.
and I.
If the sequel comes close to articulating an actual point about Joker, that is to say the persona and identity, it's that the coping mechanism that shields Arthur from the world's cruelty makes him cruel in turn. However, like many potent ideas upon which Folie à Deux touches, it's soon discarded. Similarly, Arthur's upbringing and abusive mother, detailed in Joker, are rehashed ad nauseum, while the topic of Arthur's future with Lee is quickly abandoned before it can offer any kind of thematic reflection.
Dang, so it kind of, what I'm getting from this is it's sounding like more of a 1.5 instead of a sequel. Like it's adding a few elements here, but it's retreading the same subject matter and even the same scenes over again is what it sounds like.
Look around! Look at all these people!
This is the sequel's default MO, making it a frustrating experience beyond its initial Arkham-focused hour. At first, it creates a more careful and methodical aesthetic than Joker. Each scene is carefully composed, each methodical push-in has
Nice
clear
suit.
emotional intent. But as it progresses, it does little with its camera worth commenting upon. A few dreamlike flourishes do appear, though mostly to quote the familiar visuals of other musicals, like Jacques Demy's French New Wave landmark The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, and Francis Ford Coppola's sincere, expressionistic One from the Heart.
We use music to make
Really wish I knew what they were talking about there. I need to get a little more classy with my cinema choices.
us whole.
Apart from these stray references, Phillips' expressionism is limited to making each environment and lighting source resemble, in some way, a harsh spotlight on a stage, silhouetting Joker and Lee until they become defined by their shape, their iconography. It's a great idea, in theory, and taps into the performance aspect associated with the Joker character, but it rarely evolves visually or conceptually. It's just one of several things that ends up keeping the character in stasis, to the point
It
that a
looks
vital
very
emotional
cool.
turn in the second half, which defines the movie's trajectory, comes entirely out of left field. It's one movie, and then suddenly, it's another.
I want to see the real you.
That said, Phoenix clearly knows this character inside and out by now. His posture is even more disconcerting this time. The actor is still shockingly gaunt, but the way
Such
he
a good
carries
actor.
himself speaks to a body that has endured a life of abuse. Something as simple as uneven shoulders can go a long way. When Arthur decides to embrace the Joker part of himself, this posture changes, almost fixing itself, as Phoenix sprawls out across the screen, luxuriantly, comfortably,
Dang.
and confidently, usually with a cigarette in hand. However, he never loses Arthur's inherent goofiness, even when putting on this front. As the Joker slips between forms of presentation, his accent slips as well, going from British to American Southern and back, as if he can't quite figure out who or what he wants to be.
That's cool. That's that's one of the things I always liked about the Joker and in the Batman like comics and cartoons, movies is like he's so nebulous. That's what I worried about with this. I know it's not the same, but I worried that they were going to explain a little too much. I think that having him a bit nebulous, a bit mysterious, makes the Joker even more of a good character and a good foil to Batman.
But if
'Cause-
Joker
'cause it's
Folie
hard
à
to
Deux
lock
has a
onto
not so
exactly
secret
what's going
weapon,
on there.
It's Lady Gaga's rendition of Harley Quinn, whose fascination with Arthur is the film's very foundation. It's a shame the movie never quite allows its musical elements to bloom. The energy of these segments only goes so far, because affording Gaga the chance to run the emotional and tonal gamut would have likely resulted in one of the greatest feats of screen acting modern Hollywood has ever seen.
Dang, really?
She even modulates her singing voice between the real Lee, an unprofessional who belts with an uneven passion, and Arthur's imagined version of her, whose singing is more, well, Gaga-esque. Sadly, she's constrained by a subtle performance in a film that's anything but.
Let's give the people what they want.
The careful line she walks between adoration and mania is entirely worthwhile,
there's those
and
steps.
temporarily allows a commentary on fandom obsession to sneak its way into the picture. Lee is practically a Manson girl. However, in true Phillips fashion, this idea never really comes to fruition. Before it has the chance, Joker Folie switches tangents yet again. That's to say nothing of the movie's intriguing Oedipal undercurrent, which frames Arthur's desire for adoration as a response to a lack of maternal warmth. No prizes for guessing how far this gets.
I got the sneaking suspicion that we're not giving the people what they want.
Joker, though scattered in its politics and committed to aping other, better filmmakers, at least had unifying visual and thematic motifs. It felt complete, albeit cobbled together. Joker Folie departs from this approach, initially for better, though eventually for worse.
Aww.
Its more considered frames and character dynamics set the stage for musical romance that never blossoms, visually, acoustically, or emotionally, giving way to a sequel weighed down entirely by its predecessor, despite how hard it tries to escape its orbit.
How about you, Arthur?
Verdict. What is it getting?
Do you still think you're a star?
A 7?
The
A
worst
5?
thing
A
about
6?
Joker Folie is its
I'm
unfulfilled
gonna say 6.
potential.
It sounds
begins
sounds
with
not
the
that
promise
great.
of a novel approach to the Joker and Harley Quinn, placing them in a world where the opposite of cruelty is musical romance.
6.
Unfortunately, the DC sequel gets bogged down by a lengthy courtroom saga, which not only keeps the dazzling Lady Gaga away from the spotlight, but centers the movie entirely around its
Oh my
own
goodness.
predecessor,
Yo, a
without
5?
doing or saying
Oh,
anything
jeez.
new. For
Wow,
more
it's not even
movie
out
reviews,
yet.
Check out what we
It's
thought
coming out
of
for
Beetlejuice,
in a while.
Beetlejuice and The Crow. And
Wow, dude, a 5? Ooh. My worst fears have been realized, man. Ever since the first trailer, I was like, wait a minute, this feels a little off. And then once I found out that it was a musical, I was like, wait a minute, this feels a little off. And then once I saw the next trailer, I was like, wait a minute, this looks kind of good. But now I'm like, wait a minute, this feels a lot off. Wow. I'm still gonna see it, but you know, I might be Captain Jack Sparrow. I might have to pull some Jack Sparrow-esque tactics to check it out. But let me know what you guys thought about this review. Let me know what you guys think about the movie when you see it. Yeah, and also leave a thumbs up on this video if you liked it. Make sure you click subscribe and ring the bell so you get all your notifications. Thank you guys for hanging out. Gritty Urban Saga.